Welcome to Born to Hustle. My name is Roham Carrion. I am here with Howie Nestel. He's the president of Sharkmatic Advertising, a speaker, and I might messed up a little bit on the pronunciation, but philanthropist.
There you go. You
Someone
got
who
it.
actually
Roham,
gives a
right on.
lot to the community. And I mean, if you see his social media, you're gonna see that he's very, very well involved in giving back to the community. Howie, out of curiosity, I'm wondering how long have you been the president of Sharkmatic?
I've been in marketing now for 35 years. So I've done other stuff as well. I've been a partner or an owner in about 24 businesses in 35 years. And right before the pandemic, I decided that the year 2020 would be a year of simplification for me. So I sold 3 of my businesses. And then you know what happened. Everybody knows what happened. March 2020. All heck broke loose. And I'm glad that I sold my businesses at the end of 2019. And then I was able to focus on my ad agency. And here I am, relatively unscathed after Y2K, housing bubble burst, tech bubble burst, 2008, economic recession, pandemic. And we've been blessed and fortunate to have had profitable years since we started.
That's awesome. And out of curiosity, so you started with 2 dozen businesses back in the day.
No, I started with one
You
and a $10,000 loan at 10% interest.
okay? That's exactly
get
what my
started.
question was gonna be about. Like, what ignited the hustle? How did you even start your journey? Because here, Born to Hustle podcast. I mean, what I really want to learn is what ignited the hustle, what kept you in the hustle, and potentially give yourself an advice about what would you say to your younger self. So to get that started, like, what is it that ignited the hustle that made you into who you are today?
It's never one thing. There might be one catalyst, the proverbial, the straw that broke the camel's back. But it wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back. It was all the other straw and hay and things that were piled on for a long time. It just happened to be that last straw was what made it collapse, right? So there's always something you can pinpoint to, which was the tipping point, maybe when it happened, when something clicked. But I think it's a series of things that lead up to the necessity, as you call it, to hustle, to make a living, to do better than you were doing before, right? You get to a point where, in my particular case, probably stems back to childhood. Not that we're going to turn this into a therapy session, Rohan, but my parents got divorced when I was entering high school. And I remember that my mom's business ended up closing down. Our house got foreclosed on. There was a big shift in the economy. My dad had moved from Laredo to Mexico. That's when I started getting the sense that no one was coming to save me. So we went from a nice house with a swimming pool, living in the suburbs, having a car, driving to school, that kind of stuff, to, moving into an apartment. My mom went to work for her dad, and things changed. From that point forward, my parents have said that and reminded me that I never received a penny from them after that. So I realized that, if it's going to be, it's up to me.
Okay, that's
You're a bunch of little words with just 2 letters, but if it is going to be, I guess going is a little longer, it is up to me, right?
yeah, that's fair to say.
And so I ended up going on a work-study program in Israel right after high school, and I barely made it out of high school. I went to 2 middle schools. I went to 3 high schools, a total of 4 times, including military school. And I actually was asked not to return to military school. So you got to be a bit of a troublemaker to not get invited back to a military academy. Anyway, so I graduated barely high school, made the 97% of my graduating class possible by being at the very lower end of the spectrum. And then I went on this work-study program to the Middle East, and I did everything except work or study. Went scuba diving. I did a little bit of work, a little bit of studying, but I did a whole bunch of other real cool things. While I was gone, another thing that sort of triggered me into this hustle mode was that I'm with peers of my age from all over the country that had their act together. They were already accepted in college. They were getting college credit for their year abroad. They already had an outline for what their career and their life was going to be like. And I mean, I was just like happy to have gotten barely out of high school, and I wasn't really thinking about anything else, what the next steps were. It's another trigger into, well, look, if I'm going at this alone, I better figure it out. So when I came back, I started hustling in college. I did not get accepted, no surprise there, to any of the universities I wanted to attend. So I enrolled at Harvard on the Rio Grande in Laredo, Texas, also known as Laredo Junior College. And I had two teachers that didn't know me from before, didn't know my family, had no real vested interest other than their teachers, and of course they care about their students. And both of them, independently of each other, gave me words of encouragement and said, hey, look, you don't have to be here. You know, college is voluntary. So if you really don't want to do it, why? And so kind of changed my mindset. I ended up with 4.0s at junior college. I leveraged that to transfer to UTSA. I got 4.0s there. Then I leveraged that to transfer to UT Business School in Austin, where I graduated with a very high GPA. You know, even my mom would say, what happened to the old Howie? What did you do with him? And, you know, how did this all of a sudden come about, you know, from barely passing and getting kicked out of multiple schools in middle school and high school to going to good schools and getting high marks. I ended up with multiple offers to work in either finance or marketing after college, after university. And I took a job, and I was already in full hustle mode. So I worked for Procter & Gamble, and I worked in the Dallas area. And one of my goals was to build the largest display of crest and scope ever done in the company's history. And I did that with a company that was owned by Walmart at the time in a partnership with a grocery chain, and it was called the Hypermart. And I forgot how many pallets display it was, but I had to sell it in to the store and then get the displays built. You're talking about thousands of bottles of Scope toothpaste and thousands of tubes of toothpaste in this gigantic display. And so I was written up in a magazine for Procter & Gamble, and I got, you know, national accolades for that. And I got addicted to the winning mentality and winning philosophy. I was able to do it in college. I was able to do it, you know, when I worked and made money for myself in high school. I mean, I had made tens of thousands of dollars before I got out of high school because I had to.
Mm-hmm. That's fair to say.
Yeah. And I realized that, you know, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And so I just continued it. So then I moved from Dallas to San Antonio. I worked for an advertising agency. That was my second job out of college. And I was the 17th or 18th highest or lowest paid employee at the company. So there were about 22 employees. I came in at around number 18. And if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm very competitive. So in my mind, I am always competitive. I know people say, oh, you should just compete against yourself. It's not a competition. Enjoy life. Well, I can't turn that gene off.
Yeah.
So,
I completely disagree with that
right.
anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, what does it take to move up the totem pole here? And they said, sell, be a rainmaker, bring in money. You bring in money, you get paid more. So I went from account service to account development, and I started bringing in clients. I still did my account service job, but I also brought in clients. So I went from number 17 or 18 to number 4. Didn't make a lot of friends within the company because of that. I had a few, but there was people that didn't like that because who's this new kid that just came in? All of a sudden he thinks whatever. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Why? Because I'm helping make the owners more money. So I'm bringing in more money. So they paid me more money because they wanted me to stay. Then I started thinking, well, wow, if I'm making the rain, why don't I just make it for myself? Well, I didn't really understand savings back then.
Oh,
So I was blowing all the money I was making,
yeah, yeah.
and I was living, in a crappy apartment behind Kroger back when there were Krogers in San Antonio off of Blanco and Jackson Keller. Some of your listeners will know where that is.
I didn't even know Kroger was ever in San
Oh,
Antonio.
yeah, man. Kroger was here.
Oh wow, I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Yeah.
I only went to a Kroger once in Tennessee, and I thought that was cool. I was like, oh my god, what is? Did they exist?
Yeah. We had Albertsons here.
I didn't even know that
Yeah.
either. No.
But now we have HEB. There's a plug for HEB. They can sponsor the podcast. Born to Hustle. Anyway, so the apartment complex was, spray painted. Landscaping was horrible. It's kind of sketchy. But I decided to start my own business out of there. I went and got a $10,000 loan from somebody that I knew, from her dad. And she was actually a coworker of mine at the ad agency. And then we started a little marketing firm with $10,000, 10% interest. Paid it off in the first year. We're profitable in the first year. We landed 3 recognizable clients within, I would say, 30 days of starting the business. So this whole thing about a slow ramp up, again, I didn't know that. I didn't even know about business plans, really. And I went to business school. But I was like, no business plan needed. I know what needs to be done. And I concentrated on being the rainmaker, the one that brings in the clients. We built the agency. I ended up selling it to my partners. I moved to Houston and worked for one of my clients. And again, I became the global sales manager there for a chemical company, made more money than I could spend because I was helping bring in millions of dollars to the company. So they were paying me quite handsomely. And then that wasn't my thing. I liked business ownership, so I wanted to go back to that. So I came back with 0 clients, no business plan, the experience I've had from previously being a partner in a business, and then also working for this chemical company, working for Procter & Gamble in sales, working for the ad agency in business development. And I started another agency. And within, I used to have nightmares, Roham, that I couldn't get clients, that we had no revenue. I didn't know how I was going to pay my expenses. Those were my nightmares. But yet the reality was quite the opposite. I would go out, network, chambers of commerce, Hispanic Chamber, et cetera. Hispanic Chamber became one of my clients. Telemundo became one of my clients. I got the opportunity to pitch Coca-Cola. And I remember driving to Atlanta because I didn't have the money to fly. And back then it wasn't Southwest Airlines, by the way. It was like Braniff and these companies. It was like $1,800 or $1,600 to fly their round trip. So I ended up renting a car because my car wouldn't even make it to Atlanta. So I rented a car at the airport and I took off. And I drove 17, 18 hours, went to a meeting, landed the account, came back and started operating and doing business for Coca-Cola, doing marketing stuff, regional marketing stuff for Coca-Cola. And I've never stopped hustling. Even at times when I think about, do I really need to work? Or do I have to work? Or do I like to work? And do I want to work? And it's usually the I like to work and I want to work, not I have to work. And there are 2 speeds for me. Off, which happens, for a few hours a day, mostly when I'm sleeping or hanging out with my kids or goofing off. But even then, my mind is working on business stuff and angles and quotes and talks and speeches and articles. It's now really in my DNA, and I love it. I make no apologies for it. It's part of who I am. It's part of how I define myself. But now the philanthropy aspect comes in where I get to leverage my contacts, leverage my experience, leverage my clients, and then help nonprofits. It's, a perfect marriage. So I've found purpose, meaning, and excitement and passion in what I do and how I do it. It's a little unconventional, but it works for me, and at the end of the day, who's the main actor and producer and director and scriptwriter of your movie? It's you.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you want to live somebody else's script?
That's fair to say. I remember this little saying: "You only you are more interested in yourself than anybody else.
Right.
Legit, like that's true.
It's true.
It's just, if anything, lately, as I've been talking to other people and other business owners like yourself, I've noticed that some of them do get family support, some of them do not get any family support because it's a different type of lifestyle, and not everybody understands it. Some individuals, they go to work, they go home, and that's it. They just go home and they don't think about the next step. They don't think about anything else. They just go to their job and I don't know if you agree to this or not, but even when I get out of work, I'm still thinking about the next step. I'm still thinking about the next level to the next way to level up. The next I don't know if you notice on my LinkedIn, but I write a lot of articles. So what's the next article? What is the next content? What is the next research? What do business coaches do? Like legit, what did they actually do?
Right.
Sometimes I ask myself those questions, and it's really interesting stuff. And even yourself, I like, okay, I see howienestel.com. That's cool. Let me look at it. Oh, that looks so nice. I continue researching, and some individuals, when it comes to the hustle, is it doesn't really mean nonstop work. Sometimes it just means that you gotta just identify what is the next step and proceed forward
Yeah,
from there.
great point. It's not just all work. And man, you touched on a lot of cool things because one is the support. Support is nice, but it's not necessary.
It really isn't.
It isn't. It's nice to have. It's one of those things. It's nice to have. But do you need it? Let's call it a pillow, right? It's nice to have a pillow when you go to sleep. But if you don't have a pillow, you're still going to sleep.
Yes,
See what I'm saying?
yeah. I
So
actually like that reference.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I like support and recognition and pats on the back and I'm with you and I got your back and all that. But if I don't get that, I don't care. My actions are still going to be the same. I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to take the path and fight the good fight, whether there's an audience or there's no audience. And that's ultimately part of finding your passion and your path is, would you do it anyway? Even if you don't get paid, even if you don't get recognized, even though those things are nice, but even if they're not there, I'm still going to do it because that's what I was meant to do.
That's a really strong point right there. Because some people, individuals say like, oh, because I've noticed this, like even through networking, I've noticed some business owners brand new into the business or brand new into the hustle, and they're like, well, I'm just not making enough money, and I don't know my job security and this and that. I'm like, okay, well, what have you actually been doing? Like, what have you decided to take this journey? Have you even considered committing to this journey? Have you registered the business and done it for 2 months and that's it? You're just gonna throw in the towel? Like, I understand that you like the support. Like, you, how can I describe this correctly without offending anybody?
No, you have to offend people. Let me help you, okay? 90% of the population
Mhm.
is waiting for something to happen. 10% is making something happen. And if you're not making things happen, you're in the 90 percentile. But congratulations, I'm not talking about you, Roham. I'm talking about people in general. If you're not the type of person who is making things happen monthly, weekly, daily, then you're in the 90 percentile of the people that are just waiting for something to happen. I'm just waiting for my boss to give me a promotion. I'm just waiting for my immediate superior to move to another department or to quit so that I can have a chance to maybe get her job. I'm just waiting for, these are the people waiting for things to happen. And guess what? Sometimes things happen. But the saying is, sometimes shit happens. And so it's usually not a good thing that happens. So if you're just waiting around for something to happen, there's a good chance that whenever it happens, it's not going to be good. So if you want good things to happen, go make them happen. It's that simple. Now, it's easier said than done, right? But it requires getting up, getting off the sofa, turning off Judge Judy, throwing away the Cheetos, and going out there and hustling. Meeting people, networking, calling, studying, learning, emulating, failing, shifting, pivoting. I used to be a procrastinator, okay? I would put things off. I don't have to do it today. I'll just wait. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week, whatever. It wasn't until I traded in my personality of laziness and paid the upgrade charge to adaptability that things really started to change for me. And I tell people all the time, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a person who's just living life, if you're not adaptable, you're going to have a very hard life. Because if you're so rigid and you want things to happen and you had a certain idea, and by the time I was 30, I'm supposed to do this. And if you're that rigid, you're going to have a miserable existence and you're not going to be very successful. But if you're adaptable and you could shift and pivot and pick yourself back up and fall and stand up and fall and stand up and learn and adapt and go, you're going to do much better. Adaptability is the name of the game for entrepreneurship and for life. And most people are not adaptable. And the older they get, the more rigid they become.
Yeah.
The more it had to be the way I imagined it to be. Guess what? It's not going to be the way you imagined it. It's not going to be the way you planned it. Some things are going to work out. Most things are not going to work out. Adapt to them. But just realize that road less traveled of how it turned out could be pretty damn good. But you're not going to see it because this is what you wanted and this is where you ended up.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I was part of the 90% once upon a time. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being...
We've all been there.
Yeah.
There's comfort there. There's a lot of people. You have a lot of friends. Everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
You know, you can blame the president. You can blame the color of your skin. You can blame your parents didn't have the money. You grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. I came from a country that doesn't recognize this. I didn't have the opportunity to go to education. These are all resources. And you're pinpointing the lack of resources. And everybody's in this boat, the 90%, and they're all comfortable. And yes, you're right, Roham. Yes, Howie. This, and the waves and the wind and the sail is not going in the right direction. But then the 10% is saying, hey, you know what? It's not resources. It's resourcefulness. How resourceful am I going to be? If the wind isn't blowing and the sails aren't filling up, then we're going to make an oar and we're all going to start rowing because that's where we need to go.
That's the first thing I was thinking.
And that's where you become resourceful.
Because I don't even know how or when you become part of the 10%. I know that eventually something clicks.
Yeah.
And
but it doesn't click for everybody, I'm telling you.
Yeah, but...
It's not an automatic.
I know. Sometimes it takes a lot of realizations and self-reflection because I used to self-reflect a lot like, where am I really going to go? And I think that really happened more when I was actually coming back to the civilian world because I was former military and I came back once upon a time to San Diego. I look at the city after months of not looking at the city. And I was like, whoa, the city, like I felt like I was going back into the future. Even though most of my life back then I was living in the modern world. I remember I was gone and I came back and I felt like the world just continued without you. That's how I felt. It was really interesting. It felt like my family completely forgot about me, which that's not true. Your family, yeah, they don't forget about you whatsoever. But you're so disconnected from the world. It really feels like that sometimes. But once I returned, I remember I was having different moments. Like he said, it's not just one thing. It's just multiple things piling up at the same time. And one of them was just like, where am I really gonna go? Like I know that I used to say world domination as my slogan, but the world was dominating me. So that's exactly what I was like, wait, like, what am I going to do realistically? And just because I said that, it didn't mean that I became part of the 10%. It took months of self-reflection and multiple instances. Because even when I started taking some action and I built my first contracting business, I still waited a lot of things to happen instead of making things happen. I made a few things happen, but realistically it was part of the job duties or like the duties that I was expecting, but I never went beyond in order to control, aka your own destiny, to actually make things happen. Which it's like, hey, dude, I'm working. I'm doing everything that I'm doing. I'm thinking about my goals. I'm thinking about where I want to be in 30 days. Where do you want to be in 60 days? And where do you want to be in 90 days? That's actually my framework all the time. But I never actually fully grasp it. It's like comprehended, which is very different. Comprehending what it means part of that 10%. I don't even know when that happened. I just started making things happen out of nowhere.
Yeah, I call it a knowing. It's probably the same thing, just a different word. You said comprehending, but we've all been in the situation where you have a knowing. You just know it's the right thing. You know what you should be doing. If you sit with yourself quietly, and you can have your 30, 60, 90-day plan, and I love that, because I never really liked when people say, well, in 5 years, I plan on what. That's so far in the future
That's
that chances are
so
you're going to forget about that in 90 days. Where are you going to be in 5 days? Don't tell me 5 years. What's going to change between Monday and Friday? That's a goal. So I like what you're telling me. But there's got to be a knowing. You get to a point where you just know. You feel it. It's in your superconscious mind. This is what I was meant to do. This is what I was meant to be. This is how I was meant to do it. These are the people I was meant to do it with. And you just know it.
Yes, sir.
Now, that changes. That's where the adaptability comes. But for the most part, there's this inner guide, like a compass that you have inside, that even if you don't know exactly where you're going, you know the direction. And you start going there. And miraculously, you end up getting there, And then you get to the next destination and the next destination. But you can't know what your 5 and 10 and 15-year plans are unless you start to achieve your 5, 10, and 15-day plans.
That's fair. Yeah.
And then your 5, 10, and 15-week plans. And then your 5 and 10 and 15-month plans. And then let's talk about 5 or 10 years. But by then, it's not going to matter because once you accomplish those smaller ones, you got it made.
Everything.
Because after that, it becomes a machine, man. It's like a well-oiled machine. Somebody asked me a while back, I had written an article for San Antonio Monthly Magazine that, I read your article. It's great. Are you working on another article? And it had just come out. And I said, I'm not sure, but I probably am. But sometimes I don't know what my mind is working on.
That's fair. Yeah.
And then next thing you know, I'm asked to do another article or something for the Express News. I'm like, yeah, I have it already. And it was already working and it was already being written in my head.
Just to add something to it, you mentioned like maybe the 5 years, maybe a longer road. Something that I've noticed drastically, and I've learned this concept stronger when I was in financial services and I was a financial professional and whatnot, is that stuff changes dramatically within 4 months.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff changes dramatically, especially within 6 months. New job, new career, got laid off. My wife is pregnant, quote unquote. I don't have a wife pregnant right now, but as an example, right? Like now she's pregnant, everything dramatic. You landed that one deal that changes your life and now all your goals have dramatically changed. That's why I always stick with the 30, 60, 90-day goals because in 30 days, if you stay consistent and you're not procrastinating, you're actually getting stuff done, a lot of stuff it's going to dramatically change.
Absolutely.
Dramatic. Like if you do a lot of, and that's actually one of the few things that actually helped me click on the 10% side is you see so many dramatic changes that you made happen. I'm like, dude, imagine at the 90 days. Imagine at the 6 months. So that's something that really helped me out. And just stick with the 30, 60, 90-day goals. And maybe 1 year. Where do you want to be by the end of the year? Your new me kind of deal, But thinking so far into, like, for example, you talk about the pandemic in March. Did you know that I started a brand new advertising? You know those people from Sam's Club trying to sell you NTNT?
Yes.
I used to be that guy.
Wow.
But I was really good at it. I used to wait for you at the line. Where are you going to go?
Yeah. That's awesome.
No, legit, that's how I used to.
And you have the personality for it. You have the personality where people want to talk with you.
Oh.
And just chit-chat,
Trust me, I was like, and I used to be so casual about it. And I remember with my suit and I saw the iPad and I can see sometimes they're like, they just never go away. Right. And I'm just like, hey, man, so realistically speaking, you're going to be in the line and I already know you have Verizon. So I used to do my due diligence as well. And like, I know you have Verizon. And I used to start my pitch. And then they're like, all right, man, what you got? And I knew that they were willing to listen to me for 2 key reasons. Number one, I'm just very handsome.
Yeah, for sure. That was one. And I was saying because you have a great personality, but let's go with handsome.
Yes. For the sake of for the sake of ego, let's take that.
Yeah.
And number two is because I noticed that sometimes people have this, what's the word for it? Like, I might as well. Like, I'm already going to be in line.
Right.
Might as well. And they gave me that opportunity just like to actually pitch them. But what really built the trust, and I feel like sometimes as entrepreneurs, we have to do our due diligence. I remember I knew AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, and T-Mobile, that like the mobile plans by memory.
Mhm.
So when I used to literally say, if you have four phones and this and that, how long ago? I remember I used to calculate your bill without asking how much you paid.
Amazing.
And when
Yeah.
I did this, I like look at your bill. Sometimes I was off by a few dollars, $2, $3, a couple cents. You have any idea the strong control that I got after that?
Right.
Because it's
Because you know your stuff and you're proving it.
and I proved it first. I didn't boast about it. And that's something I've noticed as well. You gotta prove it before you boast. If you're boasting, you gotta prove a little bit more than just what you just boasted. So it's better to prove it and then just boast. Because if you boast, you have to really outperform it in order for that boast to be justified.
Right.
So when I proved it, now they trusted me a dramatic amount. And I get the chance to have my own marketing firm doing exactly that in Memphis. But you know when I moved? In March
Wow.
3rd of 2020.
Wow.
So I started it with the pandemic, and I didn't even know the pandemic was the thing. I remember everything was in the news, and I was like, "Oh,
Yes,
cool,
right.
yeah." And I remember one time I looked at this object, and I was like, "This thing is really cool." And this person told me, like, "Hey, we're going through a pandemic. Don't be doing that." And I'm just here confused. What pandemic, bro? Like, mind your business. And I just like rubbed it in my face and minding my own business. I was really ignorant about like what was going
Yeah.
on. You know how I find out when the lockdown actually happened, and my face was like, what's going on? It's like the pandemic. And I'm like, what pandemic?
Right.
So that's I completely forgot what was the point of the story, to be honest with you. But the point of it was completely forgot the point.
The hustle
Oh
can
yeah,
take place
things
at any time.
dramatically change. They
Right.
dramatically change. I remember, yeah, because I used to do my 30, 60, 90-day goals. All those goals were in keeping with the sole fact that there was no pandemic. I was very ignorant about it. So when as soon as the pandemic happened, what do you think the goals happened? Everything changed. I was selling AT&T and other stuff. That's not important, like back then. Like that's not gonna life. That's not gonna change the fact whether you're gonna die or not. Like that's just a what is the
Right. You might save a few bucks and you're just changing carriers, right?
That's it. And the only thing that I was able to survive was because of the phones. Nobody cared about cable. You would have assumed that people would care about cable. Now they're gonna be home a lot longer. No, they were just like, no, we're just gonna uh, watch Netflix and just do absolutely nothing because I cannot afford it. And people start canceling and canceling and canceling. I was really feeling it. So we had to change everything, the strategy, the way we have to approach them. Came to the point that I remember I was pushing myself back in the day saying that I'm doing the very best that I can, working these 12 hours, working from like the moment Sam's Club opens to the moment they close, because eventually I don't have to. Eventually, I will be the one recruiting people where they're going to do it for me. And I'm going to train them so well that I can make sure that the business is profitable without the need of my attendance. That was the goal, and it was working for a while before the pandemic changed everything. And now I have to be out there once again. Everything completely changed. It wasn't about, oh, I can just be in the office and relax and finally breathe, stop the hustle kind of way. Just like I kind of made it, kind of, pack myself right here,
Right.
flexes a little bit. And then I think that was a humbling experience. I think, and again, I kind of wish it didn't happen, but I kind of needed that to happen in my
Right.
life for me to acknowledge that, okay, do not take stuff for granted. Just because
No.
you made it does not mean that the hustle stopped.
No, it doesn't stop. You're either someone who hustles or you're not. But this whole thing about turning it on and off and whatever, doesn't happen. You think gym rats just go for like 3 months and bulk up and then they stop and don't do it for a year and then they go back?
Mm-mm.
No, they're in the gym all the time. That's you either are or you're not.
That's, yeah.
Now, can you become? You can absolutely become, but that's where you set a standard. You either say, I was born to hustle and I haven't been hustling, and that starts today. I'm going to start hustling. But once you start, it's not a week, it's not a month, it's not a quarter. You become that, right? It's like becoming an ex-alcoholic, right? You stop. It's not now occasionally I'll just have a drink or whatever. Not gonna work. It's the same thing with hustling. But look, there's nothing wrong with being in the 90%, waiting for things to happen and be average and ordinary and get the same results that everybody else gets. You have a job, you get your paycheck, you don't complain, you don't rock the boat. But even those people are not safe because the market changes and now they lay off 5,000 jobs,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And
Sometimes,
guess what? You're one of them.
sometimes they're the first ones to get affected.
Yeah, of course. But if you're the rainmaker and you're bringing in the money, you're going to be the last one they let go.
Yeah, you're literally in your own economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you
So there's no downside to being a rainmaker. Now, is it the easiest thing in the world? It's not. But once you're good at it, I mean, you know, once you get some sales under your belt and you taste it and you feel it and you smell it, it becomes like, this is what I know I'm good at. And why would all of a sudden you be really good at selling, cell service and cable for 3 months, and then all of a sudden, without a pandemic, by the way, I'm just saying, just in general, you think that the group that's coming to Costco or Sam's Club tomorrow is not going to be the same as the same people who've been there for the last three months? It's the same thing. Once you get the recipe, once you get the formula, once you get those wins under your belt, you'll be able to continue to do it. And then when there's a pandemic, when there's a tech bubble burst, when there's a 2008 recession, guess what? You already know how to pivot, because then you just go do it in another industry with a different group of people, with a different product, with a different service. It's no different, man. Selling, communicating, touching lives, helping others, being philanthropic, helping nonprofits, inspiring others, that doesn't change. We're all humans, regardless of what conditions around us change. That's why you see people who became very wealthy in a particular industry, went bankrupt, and within a couple of years or whatever, they're back. And now they're loaded again. They make a bunch of money. I mean, you think Elon Musk was born with some kind of like genius gene that can help him create electric cars and put rockets into space and do AI and PayPal. No, it's not. It's just that he understands the game and the hustle and he does it,
Yeah.
and he sees it through.
You even see him saying that there's no actual like big guys, like there's no actual reason. He just gets up and does it.
Yeah.
So when he said that, I was like, yeah, so he's just a man of action, period. And like, one of my favorite sayings, as you were talking about that, I was like, one of my favorite sayings that I've learned from a mentor of mine was, it's not how much you make an hour, but how much you're worth an hour. That's what you really like when you're the rainmaker. How much are you worth an hour? That's the real question. That's the real grind. If you're trying to say like, let's get this bag, and you're working on an hourly job, you're not getting this bag. The reality is, how much are you worth an hour? And that's something that only you can decide for yourself, and your own efforts alone, your own actions will give you that amount. If you're not doing the action and the effort and everything that we just talked about, then obviously, how much are you actually realistically worth an hour? You know what I mean? That's actually one of my favorite sayings of all
I
times.
like it.
And just to add something more, since you already told me what ignited the hustle, what kept you in the hustle, what would be an advice that you can give yourself as a younger version of, like, now to this point, if we can go into a mirror and you can see younger Howie, what would be one of the few advices that you would say?
Yeah. I can't even remember ever answering that question, but I really like it. And I would say, I would love to have known then what I know now. So if I could go back 25, 35 years and then give advice to myself, I would say, get started early. Even if you don't know the actual destination, put into play those right things. The things, back to the knowing, the things we all know we should do, turn them into must-dos. And do it early. But when we're younger, we're lulled into this false sense of comfort that, you know what, nobody really expects much from us because we're still young and carefree, and this is the time to enjoy life and to play and to travel and to get in the car and drive halfway across the country and go see a concert and just not give a shit, sleep in people's sofas. And I get there, been there, done that. I have the T-shirt to prove it. But the sooner you get on the path, you could still do those things and enjoy them. As a matter of fact, if you get on the path to hustle, to making money, to serving others, to finding your passion in life, you'll have more time, more energy, more focus, more money to go do those things of goofing off and having fun and being young and carefree, because you're working towards a meaningful goal and a meaningful life. But if you're not working towards that meaningful goal and meaningful life, and you're just goofing off and having fun and being carefree and crashing on people's sofas, and you don't really give a shit how you make money, you just get these odd jobs and you're just kind of passing the time, what tends to happen is that you get comfortable there. You still complain that you don't have what other people have and all that, but you start to surround yourself with people that have that same attitude and disposition. And sometimes you start hanging out with people that are a little bit beneath you to make you feel better. Well, at least I have an apartment. My car might be a piece of shit and it has no air conditioning, but at least I have a car. And then you find yourself, you're 30, and you start to ask yourself, oh man, is this what really life's about? And that's why there's all these sayings, life sucks, then you die. Not really.
Mm-mm. It really doesn't.
It really doesn't.
Life is awesome.
There's so much to do, so many people to meet, so many things to explore, so many things to learn. But you're keeping yourself ignorant. And, as the saying goes, ignorance is bliss. If you don't know it's out there, hey, you're just having a nice life. I didn't know it was a pandemic. You're just having a good old time until somebody tells you.
Yeah.
And then
I had no idea.
It's Mike Tyson's quote, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. Because you walk into the ring thinking, oh, I've seen video of this guy. He's not that good of a fighter. He's not that fast. I'm just going to dance around him and all that stuff. And then he pops you in the face, with 1,000 pounds of brute force. And all of a sudden you're seeing stars. All of a sudden your plan is out the window. That's what life is like, But if you're in shape, if you hustle, if you go in with your eyes open, if you learn, if you connect, if you help others get what they want, miraculously you arrive at your destination.
Yeah. And it says miraculously, but realistically it was you.
It was, right.
Because
you're doing the right things. Are you always going to do the right things? No. But we all know the right things. And if we all know the right things, why are we putting on weight? We know what we should be eating and not eating. We know what we should be drinking and not drinking. We know how much rest to get. We know we should stay hydrated.
Yeah, and sometimes Coca-Cola, the vanilla flavor, it just eats so well.
Yeah. Especially with a little rum or a little whiskey.
Oh yeah, that hits the spot.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, right?
No, 1,000%.
And you look, it's very hard to stay in the hustle 24/7, but at some point it becomes your default setting.
It really does.
You have to remind yourself, hey man, relax, enjoy it. You don't have to work as hard anymore. You don't have to do that. You just like it. It becomes your default, And once you get addicted to those good things, man, get addicted to all the things that are positive, all the things that help humanity, all the things that help you, all the things that help your family, all the things that are good.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have a good life. But those are the hard things to do. The easy thing is staying home, watching Judge Judy and eating Cheetos. But if you always do the easy things, you're going to have a hard life. And if you do the things that are hard, you're going to have an easy life.
That is true.
It sounds counterintuitive, but it's absolutely true.
It's only, and I only agree with you because I know I went through it feels miraculous because you went through so many challenges and you're looking back and it's like, wow, I somehow made it. But realistically speaking, is that it wasn't miraculous at all. You made it. That's the thing. Because I can look back into all the challenges and don't even ask me how the heck I survived the pandemic with the marketing firm. Eventually, I went back to Texas, but that was because my daughter was about to be born, and I was thinking about I think it's time to go back to family. Because in Tennessee, I was all by myself. But other than that, I would have through pure effort alone, I was gonna survive that. I survived.
Now take this though. You have not not you, Roham, not me, Howie, not you, the audience, but no one has actually arrived at the destination and everything is finished and there's nothing left to do, okay? You arrive when you decide you arrive. Now, you can say, a person can say, I've made it, meaning I've achieved the goals I set out to achieve, but now it's time to set some new goals and some different goals. That's where my transition really from career to calling takes place. My career is in marketing. My career is in helping clients grow their business. But my calling is to do nonprofit and philanthropic work. So I've been transitioning from my career to my calling, which is my passion, my mission, my purpose as a human being. And so now I have new goals there. So even though I have achieved what I set out to achieve, and even more so than I ever dreamed of and imagined with my business and businesses, I realized that now I have other goals and other things I want to achieve. And now my time frame is shorter. You know, I'm older. I have less days on this earth. Now I got to hustle even more because I have less time. And now because I have so much knowledge and experience in doing all these other things, I know what's possible and I know what's going to take to achieve it. And what's going to take to achieve it is doing a lot more than I used to do 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. You're connecting the dots a little bit into the future by knowing and connecting all the dots of everything you've done in the past. That is data. This is a guesstimate of what's going to take place. You have a good idea of what needs to be done. And that's where I am now. So I get excited that I have a whole new set of goals and challenges and opportunities, and I want to rise to the occasion. And it's a true measure of a person, right? Because, hey, are you going to rest on your laurels of all the things you achieved and all the accolades, you know, like that movie Napoleon Dynamite, where the brother or the cousin or whatever is, oh, when I was in high school and he's still living in a trailer throwing the football, and I used to be the quarterback. And, you know, the guy's like really not accomplished anything as an adult, but he's living in the glory days of being a high school quarterback. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I cannot imagine that.
I don't want to be there. I don't let myself rest on whatever accomplishments I've had. Those, in my opinion, are stepping stones to what's going to happen in the future, right? But if you only worry about tomorrow with anxiety and you have regrets of what you didn't accomplish yesterday, last year, 10 years ago, the regret and the fear are going to rob you of your present day. Because you're going to spend all day long concerned about, you know, or regretful that you didn't do it sooner. And you're going to be worried about tomorrow because how am I going to pay my bills and how am I going to do this? That you can't live in the present day and you can't hustle. So what do people do? They just watch a movie, take a nap, get drunk, get high, just to forget.
Yeah.
You know?
Escape, basically.
Escape. So regret and fear, the twin thieves that'll rob you of your present day. So if you do the right thing in the past, guess what? As you're moving forward, you feel good about it. You have no regrets. And if you're confident in yourself that you're going to be able to achieve a lot because you know you're an achiever, you're a doer, you're a hustler, you can make it, you have no fear of tomorrow because you know you're going to get up and you're going to take that day, seize the day, right?
Yes, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And by the way, guys, we're running out of time. So Howie, before we end this podcast, and then by the way, thank you so much for coming and giving me the opportunity to have you here, have you as a speaker, share your insights and your valuable knowledge. So to end this podcast, what would be, you got 30 seconds to promote, advertise yourself, anything that you want whatsoever. You got 30 seconds to promote whatever you want.
Ooh, I'm going to take less than that, and I'm going to give you a great close, okay? Which is my personal motto and credo in life.
Hoorah.
Okay, first of all, you want to get a hold of me? Go to sharkmatic.com, SHARKMATIC.com. Look me up at howienestel.com, HOWIENESTEL.com, or on social media, Howie Nestel. And certainly, if you want to get involved with me on a nonprofit, I'd love to have you. Children's Rehabilitation Institute, Discovery Camps, my collection drive for the homeless I've done for 27 years called Gotcha Covered, Gotcha, covered.org. And I'll leave with this. If you want to have an extraordinary life, destroy the law of familiarity.
Thank you, everybody, for coming to Born to Hustle. This is Ron Carey, and I'm your host.